everyone, my name is Alicia, and today I'm going to be discussing some series that I read back in high school that I want to reread. Maybe this year, maybe next, maybe in 5 years, but I definitely want to reread them, and I think these are books that I will continue to go back to, for the rest of my life. So, that being said, I do want to make a disclaimer that these are series that I read back in high school, which means they may not be the most popular, um, these are all completed series, in other words. So they're not series that are continuing. They're not series that I have just binge read and reread, a couple of years ago. They are books that I read like almost a decade ago that I do want to reread, that I remember really liking, that are on my shelf, and I bought them because I liked them, and I want to reread. So with that being said, let's just get into it. The first series here on my list is Vampire Academy by Richelle Mead. I absolutely loved this series when I read it in high school. I think I binged the entire thing because it was all out by then. Was it? I feel like I read them in like 2012 or maybe 2013. Was it 20? I think it was 2012. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think I binged it twice in a row, to be honest. Or no, you know what I did? I binged the entire series and then I read certain books in the series multiple times. I think what I'm remembering is the fourth one that I read like 3 times in a row because I really, really liked it. I was obsessed with it. And for sure, I want to reread this series. So this is definitely on my list. So going along with the Vampire Academy series, I have to mention the Bloodlines series, which is the spin-off series. And if you don't know, if you haven't read the series and you have read the original, it is about Sydney, an alchemist, and Adrian Ivashkov, who is in the original series, and he's such a fun character, and their chemistry is epic, and this is just such, it's so comedic, and I mean, the original series was too, but I found this one funnier, and just, yeah, I just really enjoyed it. It was so much fun, and I will definitely be reading this again, and I think... yeah, I read the first couple because they were already out, but I actually had to wait for the last, 3, 4 books in the series. I had to wait until they came out. So, obviously reading the books, a year apart each time, I feel like I didn't get as much out of them as I could have had I just binged them all at once. So I cannot wait to do that and see kind of how my, views have changed. And obviously they have, because on all of these series, my views have probably changed in all of these series because it's been so long. And I've definitely, changed perspective since then. But yeah, I know I'm going to enjoy it regardless, no matter if I have a different opinion on something, so I'm excited to reread. And the third series on my list is Delirium by Lauren Oliver. I have now read several books by Lauren Oliver, but this is the first book I ever read by her. Actually, a lot of these books that I'm showing you today aren't the original books that I read, as in this particular physical book. I got all of them from my public library when I was 14, 15 years old because I didn't have money for books, and if I did, it went toward ones that I knew I loved, the Mortal Instruments and stuff like that. So yeah, but all these books that I'm showing you here today I liked enough when I was 15, 16, 17-year-old and I actually had some money. I was like, hey, I'm gonna buy these books because I really, really love them. Yeah, and then the YA industry boomed and you could not keep up with any of the releases, and you still can't to this day, but back in 2012, 2013, you kind of could keep up with all the releases. And so yeah, this is what I kind of remember. I bought so many YA series. I'm I want all of them, and obviously that is not how it works today. But yeah, so yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I did read the entire series. I had to I think I had to wait for the third one to come out. No, were they all out when I read it? I think they were all out. But I do remember reading the whole series once, and then I actually read this book. I think I've read it, I want to say 3 or 4 times back in high school. I haven't read it for many years, but the first book I just find so lyrical and beautiful, and just the ending is so heartbreaking, and I just love it, honestly. This book is very deep and emotional, and which is funny because I've read again several other of Lauren Oliver's books since then, and none of her books have wowed me as much as this one did. Even the next two in the series I didn't love as much as I loved this particular one. So if anyone has read some of her other books and you're kind of meh about them, which I understand, I would highly recommend just giving this book a try because it is so good. And yeah, if you don't know, it's takes place in this dystopian society where love is viewed as a disease, and when everyone turns 18, they have to have this surgery that kind of removes their emotions, and this character falls in love before she's scheduled to have the surgery, and she isn't sure she wants the surgery anymore, and I will just leave it at that. It is just makes you think a lot, and it's beautiful. I love it. I'll keep it at that because I've already ranted it long enough, but yeah, highly recommend. The fourth series on my list is Nightshade by Andrea Cremer. I read this book in grade 10. I actually read the series. It's a trilogy. Actually, it might not be a trilogy. There is like two prequel books. So there's the main trilogy, there's two prequel books, and then I think she started releasing other ones in the series. I'm not sure if it's a continuation of the series or it follows different characters. I did buy it. It's on my shelf. I just never read it because it had been so long since I read the original series that by the time like that book got released, I saw it in the bookstore and I was like, oh, I bought it, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna read it soon, and I just never did. So I do want to eventually go back and reread the original trilogy and the prequel books, and then I can kind of continue where it left off with the books that were released after that. But yeah, if you don't know, I mean, the cover is pretty explanatory, but it's about a pack of werewolves. Um, and I feel like there's not a lot of good werewolf YA books. I don't know. I haven't found that many just like that have solely just have werewolves. Like all the books I can think of that have werewolves have like vampires and other stuff too. So yeah. But yeah, this one is so good. It's about the main character, Kala, is the female alpha of a pack, and basically they're kind of kept in check by these like corrupt group called keepers, and yeah, so they have to kind of fight against it and kind of fight for their freedom. And there's also just a whole bunch of crap going down with the supernatural world, and they have to kind of fix that as well. Um, yeah, I can't even explain it more than that. I just really liked it, and also I just this is kind of embarrassing. I wrote like really crappy self-insert fan fiction, like actually like several. I started several stories fan fiction based on this series because I was so obsessed with it when I was 15 years old, and and like even there's this one fanfic that was a complete like total self-insert that like literally was in my head for like years. Like this fan fiction was so extensive, it spanned years, and like all the characters were the same except for like the main character. Like I was the main character, and obviously like I changed some stuff like up in the story that I didn't like, but honestly like I really want to go back and reread this and be like, what was my 15-year-old self thinking? Because like the thing is, I don't even remember these books being that good. Like I don't know why I was so obsessed with them, but I was, and now I really want to go back and reread them and be like, why? But yeah, definitely want to reread at some point. And if you haven't, like, I remember them being fun and good, and I just yeah. So if you haven't tried it out, I would highly recommend. Even though they were released quite a while ago, like a decade ago or more. Like I think I was actually like I'm gonna check the date right now. I feel like oh yeah, these were released. Oh, this was released 11 years ago, so it's been quite a while. And yeah, I honestly, this author, you don't really hear about this author on like, Bookstagram, BookTube, anything like that. And the series isn't the most popular, but I really enjoyed it. Maybe you will too, and I definitely want to reread at some point. The next book on my list is The Unbecoming of Dyer by Michelle Hodkins, and I remember really liking this series in high school. I think I read it in grade 9 and 10. What was it? Yeah, because I had to wait until the third book came out. I remember because I just started the series when the second book came out, because I do remember reading the first two like back to back, but then I had to wait like another year for the third one to come out. So yeah, this book I just remember being so creepy. I think it's the creepiest book series I've read. Basically the narrator is going through these like, you think, okay, throughout the book you think she's mentally unwell, but like it does have this supernatural element to it. And overall, like you can't trust the narrator. That's the thing. Like it's so unreliable. Like she kind of loses these chunks of memory, and like things are happening where she's like, wait, I don't remember doing this. Like how did this get here? And overall, it's just like it's so creepy. It's so well done, and I remember really liking it. And actually, the author kind of released a spin-off series. There's another character, another like kind of main character in this series, not Mara Dyer, but his name is Noah Shaw. Um, and he has to kind of help Mara figure out. I call her Mara. A lot of people call her Mara. I don't know what it's supposed to be, but I've always called her Mara, so I don't know, I stick with that. But anyway, so yeah, Noah kind of has to help Mara figure out what's going on with her, because he also kind of is noticing these weird things happening with himself as well. And so they figured it out together, and there's actually a spin-off series called The Becoming of Noah Shaw. And I saw that, and I actually do want to get those books as well. I feel like I will go back and reread this original trilogy, and then I will go on to read that spin-off series, just because I do remember enjoying this, and I honestly do want to read it from Noah's perspective as well. Because, he's like the hot British love interest in this series. But yeah, so I highly recommend. I really remember, I remember really, really enjoying it. So yeah, highly recommend. I want to reread. The next series on my list is Stutter, Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor. I honestly think Laini Taylor's writing is beautiful. It is so lyrical and like just yeah, I love the way she writes. Like I don't know how she drafts like that. I don't know whether she drafts and then goes back and like kind of tweaks the language or whether like she just writes like that. But like she's a literal goddess. Like this like she's magic. This writing is unlike kind of any other book that I have read, and it's like that in her other series as well, like the Strange the Dreamer duology, which I actually like slightly better than this series, but both are really well done. Yeah, so it's just very good, and it's very like, you know, if you haven't read this series, you don't know what it's about. It's very high fantasy. It's kind of hard to explain the premise without getting into all like the world building and like details. Like it's so extensive. It's so well done, and honestly, I feel like it's best to dive into it without knowing anything, just because it is so complex that you really have to get into it to kind of understand how all the little pieces work. And it does take a bit to get into it. Like it is a bit slow at first. So if you are reading the first like 100 pages and it is slow and you feel like putting it down, just push through it and you will not be disappointed. Like this, it's really good, especially when you get into the second and third books. Because obviously the first book is a lot of world building and a lot of character development and stuff like that, getting into the world. But honestly, like the rest of this trilogy is so well done. This book is still really well done, even though it is a bit slow off to the at the start. I feel like I'm rambling about this book, but yeah, overall, I remember really liking this. I remember binging it around Christmas time. I read it when the first two books were out, I believe, so I had to wait again a year for the third one to come out. But yeah, I binged them around Christmas time, and I just remember like I really enjoyed them. So yeah, definitely gonna reread. All right, the next series on my list is The Darkest Minds by Alexandra Bracken, and I have actually read this single book, not the series, but this book multiple times. I read it like probably like at least 4 times in high school. I really, really liked the first book. And I actually made my sister read it too. She was like, wow, you hyped it up way too much and now I didn't like it as much. And I was like, oops, sorry. But yeah, I have read the rest of the series. Because I read this shortly after it came out, I had to wait a year in between each book. And to be honest, I wasn't like overly wowed by the second and third book. Like I thought they weren't as good as the first one. They were a bit slower, a bit more dense. They took a bit more to get through. Whereas this one, I felt like it flew by. Like I really enjoyed it. The end was so emotional. And yeah, I actually remember doing my grade 10 book talk on this book. I liked it that much. I was so obsessed with it. But yeah, so I think want to reread the series and see if I like the second and third book better coming from like an adult perspective instead of, like a, I don't know, 14, 15-year-old. I can't quite remember what age I was when I read this. But yeah, so I definitely want to reread. And the last series here on my list is one that I'm sure many people have heard of and probably read, and that is Shatter by Tahereh Mafi. Again, I didn't read this particular copy when I read it back when I was, again, 14, 15. I don't quite remember if it was grade 9 or 10. But yeah, I remember really liking this writing style, the plot, like the characters. I just loved it so much. And if you don't know, like, the writing style, some people don't like it. I personally really enjoyed it. The main character's kind of struggling after, spending over a year in captivity, in isolation. Like, she's been kept alone in a cell because of her ability. And by that, I mean, I'm not spoiling anything when I say that when she touches people, like, they die. And so she's terrified of touching anyone. She, hates herself. She thinks she's a bad person. And then she gets taken out of prison to be used by the government, to be used as a weapon. And that doesn't go over too well with her because obviously she doesn't want to hurt anyone. But yeah, it is just honestly so well done. I really enjoyed it. I read the original 3, like the original trilogy, but I have not read like the next 3 that she added on, like the other second trilogy. I don't know what you would call it. Like, is it a 6-book series or is it 2 separate trilogies? I don't even know. So yeah, I do really have to read the second trilogy, but before I do that, I really want to go back and read the first 3 because I remember really, really enjoying them. And funnily enough, I actually did my grade, was it 11? I think I did my grade 11 or 12 book talk on Ignite Me, which is like the third one in this trilogy. So yeah, I really enjoyed these books, and I definitely want to reread at some point. So that was it for my video today. Obviously, these are not all the books that I read in high school that I want to reread. There are probably several more, or dozens more series that I read back in high school, or series that I started back in high school that I would really like to reread or finish, or whatever. But these are the most memorable. They're books that I really enjoyed and therefore are on my shelf because I bought them back in high school when I was really into them. And so yeah, I just really am interested in reading them with a different perspective, an older perspective. Honestly, like I might actually do a kind of series on my channel, you know, rereading after 10 years, or you know, rereading after a decade, or something like that, and kind of go slowly make my way through series that I've read in the past that I am reading again. Anyway, yeah, this video is probably long and rambling, but I hope you enjoyed. If you liked this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, and subscribe, and I will see you next time with another video. Thanks, everyone. Bye.